PJ champion Sally started the Facebook group #NotInVain 4 years ago, following the death of her 24-year-old daughter, Christina, in 2017. Tragically, PJ's 31-year-old daughter, Ashley, also died of fentanyl poisoning on January 1st of this year. She now joins a surprisingly high number of parents who have lost more than one child to overdose. She wrote in Ashley's obituary, "My grieving mother's plea is for you to reserve judgment for just a moment and see my daughter as those that love her do. You see, the stigma of addiction is so incredibly hard on those with addictions as well as those who love them."
But most obits, they will not even mention the cause of death. If we're talking stigma about, we're saying the outsiders have stigma, you won't even mention the cause of your child's death because you're so embarrassed.
PJ first joined me on the podcast 1 year ago and is back to talk about how she is coping with the deaths of her 2 children while continuing to help other mothers find hope. Well, PJ, I am so grateful to have a chance to have a conversation with you again. I am so sad, though, for the reason why we're talking again. I am so very sorry for the loss of Ashley.
Yes, that really hit us out of the blue because she was doing so well. We had thought she was just, it's the holidays. And we had gone to the zoo lights together as a family. And she was getting ready to celebrate 2 years clean. Had met a guy. We had gone down and my folks had built a new home in Amish country. We went down to see their new home all together with the grandkids, the boyfriend, all of us piled into the SUV. And it was all lovely, so different from so many of the past holidays, where usually at holidays, that's when an addict wants to, start acting up the most. So most of my holidays for 13 years between her and Christina were always ruined by one or the other, and then of course, Christina passed and then holidays were sad. So this was really our first holiday that there was a lot of joy. There was, just a lot of wonderful things going on. And we were close and we were, it was wonderful. And then we got back here January 1st. I had just got finished saying, I'm so thankful 2020 is over. We got 2021 to look forward to. And I woke up on January 1st. To the call that she was at the hospital and that she had passed away at her apartment, but that they somehow supposedly had gotten, her heart going again. And so I had hoped she was still alive, but when we got there, the doctor said she's brain dead. And that was it. So it was very different than with Christina because I had to make a lot of different decisions. She was an organ donor and 2 people did get her organs, which was very exciting to me. But also when you are an organ donor, you have to make just unbelievable decisions in a very shocked state of mind. And it's very hard.
But what a remarkable gift. Her organs, how many of her organs, her heart?
We were only able to do 2. Her kidneys was it.
Her kidneys. So she had a couple of years of sobriety, of recovery. She was 31 and you'd had so many horrible years with her. When we spoke last time, you talked about how you thought it was going to be Ashley who would die, not Christina, because you had so much difficulty and she was so deep into substance use disorder. But she had these 2 amazing years where she seemed to be better. So what do you know about what she took?
The doctor told me sepsis of the kidney. Of all things, right? The kidneys that saved, he told me it was sepsis. And I said, what? And then I told him, I need you to test her for fentanyl. It's such a different, when you lose your first child, you are in shock. You are not in control. You don't know what questions to ask. So you just let everybody else push you along this, conveyor belt. and you do whatever they tell you to do. Don't touch the body. Don't do this. Don't do that. I was in charge this time because I knew all the things that I wished I would have done the first time. And so I was in charge this time. And I know it sounds crazy, but knowing what I had to do actually helped get me through everything. It was just a different, totally different. I don't even know how to explain it. And so I said, you need to test her for fentanyl. He says, we already tested for opioids and it's clear. And see, that's what she did. She did Percocets. So I said, no. You don't understand. And this is a doctor I'm talking with. You have to do a specific test for fentanyl. Fentanyl is synthetic. It's not going to show up on your test for opioids. This is what I did. And he's looking at me like I'm nuts. And I said, I'm asking you to please test for fentanyl. And sure enough, he came back and he said, yes, 100% fentanyl.
And had you had any indication that she was taking pills or anything?
No, and see, no, none. She was supposedly clean for 2 years, and I didn't know she had a kidney infection. And I know exactly why. It was New Year's Eve. Think about it. New Year's Eve, you're wanting to celebrate with your boyfriend. You've got a kidney infection. You can't get to a doctor to get a prescription. So what are you going to do? You know how to get perks off the street for the pain. Right? So she went and got a Percocet, or I don't know, I don't know. It's still under investigation.
Well, and this is something we're hearing so much about now, are all these counterfeit pills just flooding this country laced with fentanyl. So people are so much more comfortable taking a pill often or buying a pill thinking it's real. Right. And it is just
we've always been trying to get a drug-induced homicide charges for these dealers and for these people that have given them the pills. Well, now that it's 100% fentanyl, when these people are thinking they're taking a Xanax or whatever, you know what? That's murder. And Peer Bear of drug-induced homicide is really, it's terrible, but it's helped that cause. We're getting more and more states to get convictions for drug-induced homicides now.
Yeah, definitely that's what it is. If people were going around poisoning people's alcohol in a bar, I know alcohol is legal and these pills are whatever substance are illegal, but they're poisoned. And if people in a bar were drinking and all of a sudden they were poisoned, can you imagine the outrage that there would be? But because it's illicit drugs and they're poisoned, people don't seem to care as much.
Talk about the stigma of alcohol, and there is, but it's nothing compared to the stigma with drugs. Nothing.
Well, let's talk about stigma for a minute, because your obituary that you wrote for your daughter, your first one, you were so open and honest, and that really snowballed when you lost Christina 4 years ago. Has it been 4 years since Christina?
It is, and I was at such a good place. We were planning so much for the coming year. And I was really in a place where I had felt Christina with me all the time. Her daughter did. We were both just in a very great place. And to lose another one at, almost 4 years in, it set me back to square one for sure. And maybe worse, because I was grieving Christina all over again too. And right. Dealing with Tegan's grief and Lila's grief, being close to her Aunt Ashley and
both your grandchildren.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So my mind doesn't even want to go there, because I think that losing one child is so horrible. And then to imagine even losing a second child or a third or a fourth, and in the group #NotInVain that you started, there are a lot of other moms out there who've lost more than one child.
Yes, we got over 90 moms that came in just from the time Ashley passed till now. There's I would say probably at over 100 moms that have lost two now. Two kids. Some of them were already on the page, so we were already supporting them with their first loss. And then they've lost a second one. And so most friends of mine on the page that have lost a second. And then because of the obit, and everything. And because we saw so many seconds passing, then that attracted other people that we didn't even have, with the one loss coming on with both of theirs. And we have about 4 moms with 3, lost 3. And then we've got, of course, Carol Morris with the loss of 5 of her children.
And I did interview Carol for one of my podcasts, so you can go on to our podcast page and check that out. But I wanted to talk to you about the obituaries. The first obituary, Christina, you were honest about what happened, about addiction. And then with Ashley's, you really addressed stigma. Can you tell me why you did that?
Because there was so much, again, you realize the things you left out. Plus Ashley was in the film One, which was, had film festival awards, and she was in documentaries to help with schools. And so I wanted all those links in there. I wanted the links to Team Recovery to help addicts that were struggling. So I wanted the link to Not in Vain so people could come there, for the grief. I wanted all those links in there. And then I also wanted to humanize my daughter, and that's why, I said, she may just be, another drug addict to these people, but to her niece, to her son, to me, to my parents. And I made that real, in it. And it was so important to me. And both of the obits went viral.
Yeah. How do you deal with the overwhelming emotions that I know that you've felt since the loss of a second child, and knowing that you're only 2 children? I know you have your grandchildren. Both Ashley and Christina each had a child. But you've lost your only 2 children. And I have to tell you that having other children is part of what keeps me going. Right?
Yes.
And so how have you coped?
Yeah. Having Ashley, I would say she helped a lot with Christina, even though at the time she was still using. Just knowing she was here and fighting for her life helped me at the time. And I lost a son at 4 months along. Before I even had Ashley years ago, I had lost a son, and that was a totally different loss. Not like having your children with you for 24 years as Christina, and 30, almost, she was just getting ready to have her 32nd birthday. And it was 2 weeks before her birthday. And then I turned 60 just a few weeks after that. So it was quite a hit. But after I got through the funeral, her service, then and it was a beautiful service. It really was. I had so many people tell me, I want my service just like that, because it just glorified all the good. We had testimonies of people standing up on stage talking about her too. We had just the most beautiful songs and music and video clips that were made. Just wonderful. After that, I just looked at the kids and I said, we're not going to keep sitting in this. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't keep dealing with the sadness, and I said, we've got to start living again. So a week after her service, I got off the phone the day after the service, I just say, and I got a hold of 3 of my local mamas. And I said, we're getting out of here, and we're going to go to a bed and breakfast. We're going to celebrate my 60th. And I don't know how this is going to go. I have no idea. I said, but I need joy. I need joy. I've got to have, or I'm going to lose it. I'm going to just totally lose it. And so we all went. Like I said, I didn't know how it was going to go. No plans, but to meet there and see what happened. We just, 1 minute we're all cracking up laughing, and the next minute we're all bawling, and we ate, we talked, we cried, we just covered everything in the spectrum that you can imagine. We got in jacuzzis, and we had chocolate, and we had scripture reading. We prayed together. We shared memories of the kids, and I'm not kidding you. We literally kept going from laughing to crying. It was a roller coaster, as our feelings are normally anyway. We never know what's going to trigger us or set us off, but it set me on a better path. I just think the more that we go there, not that we have to grieve and we have to make time to grieve, have to, because it's going to come up anyway if we don't, and then it's a real mess. But I went into a dark place for about 3 months, a really dark place. Nobody knew.
How could you not, though? How could you not? That's the thing. I just don't.
You have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. And I just came out of it, I'd say about 2 months ago. I'm working my way back because you go back to everything again. I mean, the grief brain that creates all that fog. I mean, literally. So all the grief brain stuff comes back worse than ever. I mean, I just thought, wow, I may have permanent brain damage. I mean,
it feels like that trauma. It feels like a brain injury. It really does. And until you experience that, you really can't understand.
No. And you can't, the difference between, us moms explaining to a mom that has not lost a child is the same difference of me trying to explain to a mom that's lost one what it's like to lose two. Those memories are
but still you're a mom, and you'll always be a mom. And 3 to lose all of your children, and now you have your grandchildren, and how are your grandchildren doing?
Well, that's another thing. I won't go into it, but definitely complicated because we found some things out. Once Ashley had passed, Keegan revealed some things to me, and we had to get him into an excellent. I couldn't put him into just a counselor. It had to be somebody that was specialized. And I drive once a week, an hour away for an hour to an hour and a half appointment and an hour back. And we finally started lessening those visits now. He's doing better, but there's so much anger. He's got so much anger and so much in him. And now they're both these teenagers, and they're both going through puberty. They got all this grief going on, and I'm trying to just get through the day, and then
wow.
I just say, Lord, I don't know what you think I'm made of, but I think you got me confused with somebody else.
Those children are so lucky to have you. And I can't imagine.
There's days that they would say yes. And then there's days that, I'm either the best Mima in the world, or they hate me. So,
well, that's a teenager for you. You also began after Ashley's death to study grief, to be certified in what, tell me what that is all about.
Well, what's exciting is David Kessler, who is the best known grief expert in the country. And he did a wonderful, wonderful classes with labs, with extra videos of all kinds of the top-notch grief experts in the world, all kinds of things that we worked through. And he did a 3-month program. And once we're certified but then it continues to go on for 9 more months, where every day we get articles, we get videos, we get things that we can work on, all kinds of things from him for a whole year. We ended up using funds from the Not in Vain nonprofit to enroll 6 of us, our top people on my page, all our board members, and then 2 others, to take this class and work through this. And so now they're able to help other moms on the page with the things we've learned, because we get lots of moms that are talking suicide, that are talking, I don't want to go on anymore. I mean, I can't tell you, and only the moms can tell you of the moms that are on there, of the moms that we have talked out of. We've not lost one mom yet that has called us regarding suicide. There's been moms that belong to our page, of course, that have. And of course, a lot of those have happened since the pandemic because of the situation. We're carrying our grief. We're carrying the political animosity. We're carrying the vaccine, tension. We're carrying the economics of our country going down. We're carrying, losing not only relatives to this epidemic of drugs, but to the pandemic. And we've got so much going on as a nation, that it's hard. I mean, first, when we first started our grief, a lot of us thought, wow, nobody cares. Now nobody really cares because everybody is just scooping water to get out of their own little hole,
Yes, I would say that is one thing that I noticed. There was a lot more attention on the opioid epidemic and the overdose deaths, before the pandemic hit. And now so many people are dealing with grief from COVID-19.
Reaching our way to making a headway on it. And then boom, it was like, back burner time.
Right.
And
still like 223 people, because of the pandemic, the deaths of overdose have increased to 223 people every day.
300 now. It's almost 300 a day.
And the membership in #NotInVain has grown since we talked by like another 1,000 moms at least, right? Yeah. What are you at, 6,000 now?
Almost 6,000, almost.
Wow.
We're 5,900 and something right now.
And so you've trained in this, the grief expert, and how to help people with their grief, how to help moms in the group. What else is #NotInVain? That's your Facebook group. What else are you doing?
Heavenly Gifts for Children. And Heavenly Holiday Gifts for Children is the program that we're doing right now. It runs through November 1st. And we have people that are doing, of our moms are doing fundraisers, some just donate. And what it is, but we're having all our moms on our page that are raising their grandchildren due to the loss of the child from addiction. These poor kids are collateral damage to this. And the fault of the moms, a lot of them don't have money. We've got one mom that has lost 2 children. She's raising all 10 of her grandchildren.
Did you say 10?
10 grandchildren. She's raising from both these children. And she's one of the moms that we're helping with the Heavenly Gifts program. And what they do, they fill out an application with the kids' names, all that, just, so we've got their information. And then they're able to go online and make their wish list for each one of the kids. And we work through Amazon. Then we order through Amazon. They wrap the gifts. They send them directly to the moms. And the gifts have tags on them with whatever the grandmother wants on them. If they want, this is Merry Christmas. This is from your daddy in heaven, or, whatever they want on their gift card. If they want it from them, that's fine. But most of them opt to have it from the parent from heaven. And that's why we call it Heavenly Holiday Gifts. So that's what we're doing right now through November 1st. And then we're also have started planning for our huge retreat in June of 2022, which is at our Trade Winds Resort. We've had them before, and the last 2 got canceled because of COVID. But this one, we've got insurance. We're working hard on it, and it's going to be something else. We do all kinds of things. We send to moms that have lost a second child now. We're working on sending cards with the rubber band bracelets that say "Not in Vain, you are not alone." If we have a mom that comes in with a loss and she is really, really struggling with her second loss, we're sending money to the funeral home to help with the costs. We've also helped with urns. We're trying to find every which way. We go to funerals. And we take gifts to funerals and cards. There's a lot of things that we've got going on.
So many things, and so many moms, and so many people looking for support and just something in the darkness, right?
We get the local meetings going in the different states.
Like chapters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We just call them facilitators, because we want them in a city and then to go, as far as they can. I mean, I've got 250 within an hour and a half radius of myself.
Now, I have a question for you. I think about this a lot for myself, because our charity, Emily's Hope, obviously centers around loss. And while we're helping many other people, I'm still immersed every time I'm doing something for Emily's Hope or talking about like this with you, still immersed in the tragedy, in what happened. And I wonder, sometimes I think it can be very healing. It can be very helpful to help others. But I also wonder if it can also take an emotional toll for you. You've lost two children, you've lost two daughters to overdose, and you're on a Facebook page every day with other mothers suffering from loss. You're taking grief. You're sort of just in it 24/7, right? Does that ever affect you in a negative way?
Yeah, I have to take mental health breaks, obviously. If you don't get away, we talk about that on the page, even with our moderators and admins working on there. When you start going on the page and you're uplifting other moms, you're helping other moms with grief, you're helping other moms with problems, you start feeling like you are to immediately get off. You are to immediately get off and go do something that will bring that joy back to you, whether it be music, whether it be going and making yourself a cup of tea, whether it be reading a good book, whether it be getting with a friend that can make you laugh, whatever it is. You are immediately to focus on something else. Maybe go see your grandchild for a while, whatever. That's the thing. A lot of people say, how do you do it? They don't get to see me in my worst, when I'm a mess and crying. And I mean, I'm human. I'm just like everybody else. And by looking at me, you definitely can tell that I've been through hell, because I've gained weight. I mean, I look like a whole nother person than I used to. There's such a difference in everything. Everything's pulled. I mean, I know I'm older, but I was in, I was whatever, 50, whatever, looking like I was in my 30s. So I just felt, okay, I'm going into the 60s. I'll look like I'm in my 40s, No, it's really taken its toll. And I don't do self-aid that I should, but I do know when I'm to change. And I would say my biggest thing is getting the joy of the Lord is my strength by far. And so many people keep saying, well, I can't be happy. I've lost my child. I can't be happy. And you see people that are 8 years in, and they're as miserable as somebody that just lost their child 5 months ago. For me, something is wrong at that point. Something's, of course you're going to have times like that. You're going to visit that place of hell. You are going to visit that. You don't have a choice, but to live in that hell, that's a choice. That's a choice. Visiting, not a choice. Living there, a choice. And happiness is just totally external. It's fleeting. It's achievable only on earth. It's just your circumstances and what feels good. It's eating a chocolate piece of cake. Those are happiness things. I'm talking about joy, on the other hand. It's internal, it's selfless, it's sacrificial, it's a spiritual connection with God. And we need joy in our lives just as we need one another. We've got to have that. If we don't have that internal joy, that I don't know how people make it. The only way I've made it thus far, that relationship connection there, and then that relationship connection, which I can get to him to give to my mamas, who in turn soak the positive. I'm not saying all the mamas. There's lots of mamas that to this day, they've been on that page for 4 years and they're still in victim mentality. They're still whining. And I'm not saying this to judge them. We do not judge on our page. We love those moms that are immersed in that just as much as we do our moms are paying it forward with everything we've given them. We love them just as much. They're just maybe in a harder time because they don't have any support, because maybe they have a mental health issue. Maybe they're doing drugs themselves. Maybe they're drinking their problems away. There's so many issues, but they need us. We're their sisters. We don't turn on them because they can't be joyful like us. Okay. That's nonsense.
Let me ask you this. The joy that you say that you have, that you therefore can in turn give to other moms, comes from God and comes from your relationship to God. And I think we talked a little bit about feeling abandoned by God in our first podcast, because so many moms do feel that way. And I know you had a little experience that taught you a little bit about that, but losing a second child, you have to feel like, why me? Like, could there really be a God that would allow this to happen to somebody twice?
Yes. She overdosed and almost died 3 months after I lost Christina. I was probably more ready to lose her then than when I did. There are certain things that I worked through so that I didn't have to go through that again with her. The guilt, I should say, all the false guilt stuff, that I didn't have to work through, because I did that with Christina, and I knew when I was coming to those what ifs and if onlys, that just fries your brain and it gets you nowhere. So I can close the book on that. You get anger at your child. You get anger at those who you believe failed her. You get anger at the people you believe might have contributed to your death. You get angry. You can get angry at God. Absolutely. We have a lot of mamas that had either, started towards faith or had strong faith that totally turned their back on God because they felt it was them. You may be angry at yourself because you're just unable to save your child. And you think that's, that's what a mom does. She protects her child. And that's okay. You have to express that anger. God can handle all that anger. He can really handle that. He's got big shoulders. Go to him, scream at him, yell at him, tell him these things. Your child's not here anymore. Sit down, write to them. Tell them how upset you are. In 1 minute, you're going to be screaming and yelling. The next minute, you're going to be saying, I love you. I miss you. Let them know. But the worst thing you can do is to not get that all out, is whether you have a grief page, whether you have a best friend, whether you have a pastor, whether you write it out, whether you scream in your bedroom to God. The idea is to get that toxic crap out of you. Even the legitimate questions, to get those out of you. It's so important. And once you do, if that spiritual disillusionment will start to change. It really will, because he is the only hope. When I have moms on my page that they are not comforted that their children are not suffering anymore, that their children are with their Heavenly Father, and that they're at peace and they have a whole new life. When I can't comfort them with all the things that truly comfort me, it's very difficult. That does make it really hard. So that's why we really work to try and encourage that relationship in every way we can with our mamas.
The other thing I thought of as we were talking is that something needs to change in this country so that so many children, young people aren't dying from overdose. And you've got nearly 6,000 moms on your site. What about activism? I mean, is there a way? I always go back to the moms who had kids dying of AIDS. And it was really those mothers who stepped forward and got the funding, for the research to find not cures, but treatments for HIV. And, I remember the AIDS quilts and the demonstrations in Washington. And it just seems maybe it's because of the pandemic and our inability to do as much as we did. But there are so many families affected by this epidemic now of overdose deaths. And it just seems like we need to all do a better job of banding together. And you've got them all in your group. What can we do?
Well, I think there's 4 reasons why we're not getting movement in our movement. Okay. One is what you said. Now we've got all these added things going on that people are tied up in, dying from COVID. We've got the vaccine thing going on. We've got people losing their jobs and just trying to exist. So you've got all of these outward things that have changed. You also have the powers that be, okay, that are even bigger than the government, that are making buku bucks off these drugs. This is what scares me about the open border with the cartels coming in and all this other stuff. That it terrifies me that this is going on. And so you've got that, which is even bigger than us. But we can't control those things. We can still make a difference, because we were making a difference until the pandemic hit. Okay. Okay, that's why I started the page for mothers only, because I thought if we can help these mothers get some healing and get some positivity and find God and find purpose, knowing their kids are safe and sound, they've got to love themselves and love their life and hate these drugs enough to let's get a move on now. Okay, now we've dealt with our grief. Now we can be warrior women, okay, and deal with it. So that's the third one. The fourth one is the stigma, which we started to talk about. The stigma. Even if you decide to keep the cause of your child's death a secret, don't allow this to deprive you of the joy of speaking about your child to your family, your friends who want to support you. Remember the life of your child, focusing on their accomplishments, their aspirations, is so important. And the substance related issues do not define the sum of your child's life. And what happens, I see this now. I see some great obits that just get out there and put it all out there. But most obits, they will not even mention the cause of death. If we're talking stigma about, we're saying the outsiders have stigma, you won't even mention the cause of your child's death because you're so embarrassed. You don't want to talk about it even to your own family because you're so embarrassed. How are we going to make a move? How are we going to make a move when our own moms are embarrassed?
And that is why I went public as someone who has a public platform to talk about what happened to my daughter, because I thought we got to do away with this. I mean, I don't think I was ready to say in her obituary a couple of days after she died. I hadn't even processed it completely yet, but I did talk about it at her funeral. And I did say that her addiction did not define her. I mean, she was so much more than that. All of our kids were so much more than that. I refuse to be embarrassed about how my daughter died. I refuse to be ashamed of her. And I want people to know that this can happen to anybody in any family.
Absolutely.
I am just so sorry for everything that you have been through. And I know words just fall short. Is there anything you'd like to leave our audience with before we go?
Yes. The most important thing that we have is love. That is the most important thing. It's the thing, self-love in a healthy way that will keep us going and that will make us people that are a joy to be around and that people want to be around and want that we can influence others. That's huge. Love for other people. If you can't love yourself at first, just read Psalm 139. That is a wonderful psalm to help you start to love yourself. God loves you. And if the God of this universe that created all this beauty around us loves us more than anything he's created, we should be able to love ourselves. And he loves these creatures around us. So we've got to set our side. God died on that cross because he loved us. He sacrificed his own life because he loved us. We got to sacrifice our lives now to help save other moms' kids. We have to sacrifice our lives now to help our grandkids. We have to sacrifice our lives to help our mamas. We have to. We cannot afford to be selfish. This pandemic is making everybody selfish. I got to get my toilet paper. I got to take care of my cause. That's not love. That's not what God teaches us. What we give away comes back in droves. We learn that with, even if you have the widow's mite, you've only got one coin, and you say, what can this do? You would be shocked. Little is much when God is in it. Give him a mustard seed and he'll grow it into a huge tree. We've got to find a way to get our ugly, mucky thinking, those muddy boots that we allow the enemy of our soul to walk around in our head with. We've got to get rid of that. And it will constantly, all the negative is so easy to pour into us, and getting down and bawling our eyes out and feeling sorry for ourselves where we're at. That's so easy to do. We've got to go back to love. We've got to go back to loving one another.
And you're doing that through your Facebook group, looking out for so many moms and loving so many moms through the worst thing that can happen to a parent. So Thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you, Angela, for being a voice for us.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us for Grieving Out Loud. If you're enjoying the podcast, please consider giving us a positive review. You can also read my blog and learn more about Emily's Hope on our website at emilyshope.foundation.